Yo, what is going on, guys? This is Jax.
Yo, Jax
Yo,
and
here.
TYS. Yes, we're going to be doing the Yu-Gi-Oh! Show with this legendary guest. Guys, look, I don't know if you know, but I'm so excited to have Jax on the show today. Yeah, bro, he's a legend. When it comes to DDD, there's no one better. There's no one you can compare, man. This guy knows everything about the deck, and he's definitely, he's the one to watch for sure. But yeah, let's get straight into the show, bro. Thanks for coming on. But why don't you give us a bit of an introduction into yourself, bro? How you got into doing YouTube and such?
Yeah, great question, man. So, basically, YouTube. I've been playing the game pretty much my whole life. Pretty well. Like, YouTube started because of COVID. Not a lot of stuff was going on, right? Like at the time, I was off my job for a little bit when I was working a 9 to 5, and then my brother and I were like bored at home because everyone's locked down. And I was like, why don't we just record this? Because I'm still playing DDD and I think people like to see it. So my brother and I were doing that, like mix of that, and my brother's more known for like fluffles and stuff. So we were doing that for a bit, and then yeah, basically COVID just brought it in, and then I think kind of picked up traction when I think during VFD format was where I started seeing more traction on my channel. I had like a combo with VFD, like a lockout with like the bore load. I don't know. It was like when Hulk was a thing. It was virtual format, and then that was my first video that kind of went a little bit higher in views, and it kind of just snowballed from there. So.
Jeez, wow. And then I guess so. In terms of DDD itself, was it like always a like kind of at least a pet interest of yours? Was it something specific that spurred you into it, or?
Yeah. Basically, I so kind of touching on how long I've been playing. I've always played Yu-Gi-Oh throughout my high school year. Like I'm currently 25 years old, so throughout my high school years, I didn't play Yu-Gi-Oh. Like grade 8 onwards through high school, and then after that, 2015 came around, and my buddies and I we were actually at a house party, and everyone left, and it was just the host, like who was a good friend of ours, and just us two at like 3 a.m. And Walmart was open for 24 hours. So we're like, yo, you think it'd be crazy if we went and bought Yu-Gi-Oh cards? So we went out. It was like November 2015. We went out, bought like a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and then I didn't know what XYZs were. Like I heard of the black cards, and I opened a pack, and the first card was like a common XYZ, and I was like, oh, that's crazy. And then the next card I seen was a DDD. It was Kepler. I was like, what is this thing? I didn't even know what pendulums were. It was like crazy to me. And then I looked more into the deck and like how it can do all the mechanics and stuff. And that was the first deck I built. So I had the deck built in like December, like Christmas, 2015. And ever since then, like that was back in the days of like Swirl Slime fused the level 7, like OTK for 7,800 or something to make the Red Eyes Flare. Like we're talking like way back. And like, yeah, it just gets stuck from there. So it's always just been my deck. And then, yeah, that's pretty well where it started. So.
Wow, shock.
I'm gonna be real. I sorry to cut you off there, Fabs. I had no idea that DDD had been around that long. I legitimately thought it only came out in like 2017.
Yeah.
Has it actually? Because I only started playing in like 2017 in it. So
yeah. The Pendulum format was like, I think the first time it got released was around about 2014, something like that.
I think so, yeah. Like Plush Fire and stuff was out, and that's the format. I came into a Tier 0 format not realizing, and yeah. So that's where it all started. Like if you look at the old Swirl Slimes and the Necro Slimes, they're from Dimensions of Chaos, and that's a 2015 set.
Okay.
So was it like when you picked up the deck, obviously coming into a Tier 0 format, was it something that you immediately had like an affinity for, and then you just kept it as like a pet deck going? Like through the years.
Always. Yeah. I think where I really found trust in the deck was like my locals like used to be like super competitive edge. Like about 15 of those guys would all just group together and go to like events. Like we used to have it like super competitive, and basically they're all playing Pepe. Like it would be like 4 to 5 rounds of me playing against Pepe, and I'd be on DDs. And there was one time where I started to get better playing against these guys where I actually went like pretty well undefeated until the last round where this guy opened triple damage juggler, and that's how he won. It was crazy. Like we still all talk about this day, but it was crazy. Like I lost in game 3. And that would have been my first time topping locals, but that's where I found there was a bit of an edge with the deck. because a card like Kali Yuga in that format was crazy. Like wiped scales, and these people were like reading Kali Yuga. I was like, this could always be like a rogue contender, right? And then that's where it stuck. I just love doing like, it's all the. I think it's the fact that it can do every single mechanic, like fusion, synchro. Back in the day, it was like glow up bulb, brought in the synchro aspect, like the stuff like that, right? It has a lot of resilience, so kind of why I stuck with it.
Yeah, and I remember before, like the way DDD was before compared to how it was now, though. I'm sure there's still builds now. Yeah, it used to incorporate like every like card and engine. Like they were just the combos he used to do were so mad and like completely non-linear. Yeah, you just see different like combo pieces and routes. Whereas now, I would say it's, I don't know, maybe you can actually. What do you think? I would say it's easier now than it was before, because before you just had to like, there was just so many different things. That was what stopped me from even trying to learn it before. But then I think it was so. In fact, no, I want to bring this up. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is what happened. I think someone made a spreadsheet, and then I feel like you made a video, and you just released all the info in the video. You're like, guys, don't pay for this. And that was like, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there was like a $20 or $25 spreadsheet, and I was like, I ain't paying for this. And then suddenly I go on your channel, and it's just got everything there. And also you've got deck profiles and stuff. I'm like, what the heck? I'm gonna just go.
Literally just goes like, don't pay this money. Here's what you need to play the deck really, really well.
And basically that was the thing, right? Because Nesh started the thing with Virtual World where you get the spreadsheet, which I thought that was pretty cool, right? I was like, okay, this guy's like insane with the deck and whatnot, right? And he's charging money. I'm like, sure. Yeah. And then with DDD, like the deck's been around for a while, and then like the homie Jib Rail picked it up, and then he put out a spreadsheet, which I had nothing against, right? But I was at the same time, I was like, man, like y'all got to pay like $20 for a spreadsheet. Like you can just watch my videos, because like I thrive off of like giving people information. Yeah. Like I can like coach people. Like that's kind of like why I do my job and stuff. Like I love like coaching people. Like I just get like, I don't know, a high off of like just explaining like my videos. If you ever watch them, they're not edited. It's just a one shot, just go. And it's just me explaining off like the top of the dome, right? Yeah. So it's like, just watch this hour-long video. I'll explain like from top to bottom, like all like thorough combos, and then like giving the structural combos. Like once you know these, you can kind of pave the path for like everything else, right? I had nothing against. I think some people had some like mixed perceptions on like, oh, this guy's like attacking Jib and stuff. But like, no, I have nothing wrong with the guy. The guy's super cool, like super good player, and like that was it. Like but I totally understood the whole spreadsheet thing. I get it. Super knowledgeable player. Right?
Yeah. I was going to say as well, like having that, obviously that kind of sort of schedule with the videos and like that kind of method. I think people prefer that in that kind of case, because I remember even when it came into like the concept of picking up like DDD and stuff like that, the deck is so incredibly complicated and so like complex that you have to have like a PhD in mathematics or science just to even attempt sort of the combos. And then there's it for content like yours, to have like that complexity explained in such in depth as well. It's great, and I think people really enjoy like having that kind of video sort of style, just to get sort of break things down to a point where it's more, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely right. It's really useful for learning a specific deck, right? Or even like just trying to better yourself as a player. Like the in-depth breakdowns, I've always, like personally, I don't know about you guys, but I've always found an affinity for players who just really know how to break down specific lines and like even like aspects of playing the game that you wouldn't have thought about, right? Like knowing when to scoop or whatever. I think it's a real line of content creation that I think is really important, and I think a lot of people do sleep on it, to be fair. Like a lot of people just want to see it. They want to see a deck profile, right? Like literally before we were doing this, I was checking out a channel. I'm really sorry, I can't remember the name of it. But he had like 2-hour videos on like Labyrinth and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, yeah, like this is someone who'd like patch. Yeah, bro, it was insane. Like he was going into so much detail. But anyway, What were you talking about?
I was gonna say as well. Like one of the things I'll say for sure is like, because I remember, so when I tried to pick up DD back in the day and I just couldn't. I was similar to Nate. I was just like, this is just too complex. But when they got the new support, and then I remember watching your video, Jack, and these guys were testament to it. I took DDD to locals for like 4 weeks. I was dominating. It was insane because it was like some of the stuff, like you would say, one of the things I really liked is that I would watch a video and then it's like you'd randomly bring up a card. Like I remember once, like was it Performer or Cerberus? Like you randomly brought up a card that like no one else was using in DDD, and then you gave really good reasoning for it. So I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Put it in the deck and it worked, and I really liked that. It's like I was getting those insights from the deck, and it just felt
I
like
think it was.
yeah.
I think it was Thomas. I think it was DD Thomas because there's a lot of back and forth, and like it was like that for a while. Like, why do we play Thomas? Or like I remember like people would kind of like talk about like why is this guy playing Thomas, right? Or like guy sucks. Like why is he playing Thomas? It's like, bro, just play the deck. Like you need Thomas. Like you cannot, and everyone knows to this day you can't play the deck in a pure variant without Thomas. Like the card comes up like every match, right?
110%. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I do think it's sorry, Swabs. I do think it's so interesting that when you make an unorthodox choice in a deck, people are so quick to flame it without trying it, right? Like, I mean, DDD is something that is a deck. I don't know what fucking Iris also. DDD is a deck that like is obviously so complex, and there's so many different decision trees, and there's so many different ways of building it. I imagine, like. Right. I imagine that's the kind of comment that you get a lot on your channel, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that something that ever, like, not puts you down, but gets you frustrated?
Yeah. Like, I mean, every time I make, like, I think, like, the recent one was for the Tier 0 format I just came out of, where obviously DDD was nowhere in favor, and I proved that at the last regional in Toronto I went to. And I knew that going in, but I took out Cerberus. Right, Cerberus, the one that level modulates Cerberus, and people were wondering, like, not in my videos, but like in the Discord chats and like through like the thing that Jesse has, like people were in Discord were going like, oh, why would he cut that, right? And it's like, well, if you watch like these streams I was doing for testing, you'll realize that it really never once came up, and it was considerably like trimming the fat to where for us to really compete and like set fire, we needed at least 15 hand traps to combat some of these decks, right? Because we were at like a severe disadvantage. I'm like, well, what's the one card we can cut in the center? You can't cut Thomas, you can't cut Ragnarok. You could cut Rage, but not if you're playing the Fury package, which is ideally better through Advantage, which was 100% last format. And the Cerberus I found was actually bricking on me a lot more than I needed it, compared to I'd rather have a hand trap. So people were like kind of bashing that. It's like, well, I play tested this deck for, I don't know, 2 weeks before the regionals, and I never once needed the card. Now, moving forward, if I don't need so many hand traps, like a Tier 0 format, then yes, I'll put it back in, because it does have some synergy. But it's cards like that where, like, choices like that, right, where people are like, they'll kind of bash on it before they really, like, bro, I was playtesting this for like hours sometimes for 2 weeks straight. Like, I know how the card works, and you just don't. It's stuff like that where I even think we see it with, like, people like Pac and all those influencers where people just bash when Hani. The other thing is too, when Hani played only two, what was it? He played two Merly, and people were going crazy. It's like, bro, like, do you really want to mill Merly as your first name in tier? No, right? Like, it was smart, right? And people bash stuff like that before they even give it a chance, and stuff like that, right?
I think creative deck building is definitely something that it needs to be looked on more, because if you've put so many hours into the deck and you made a choice based on those hours that you put in, and then people start bashing it, it was just like, just give it a try before you even decide to put your opinion out there, because you never know, it might work.
Exactly.
Might work for you, might not work for you.
100%, right?
So I guess my next question is then, for next format, where do you think DDD sits? Because obviously last format was a bit of a mad one, but I feel like we might be back. What's it saying, bro?
Yeah, I'm definitely giving it some time. Like, it's a really good question. Like, I'm definitely giving it some time to see where the format shapes up a bit, because I think some people, Bystials aren't going to leave completely, but a lot of people are on the fence of like, okay, when it does shape, like, how many Bystials are people going to need? Or like, a lot of people already aren't playing them, like Branded will and stuff like that. And they're already playing a small package. And before, when Branded played their package of Bystials, you could still deal with them, right? It was more so as Shizu when they played the Bystials, or Sprite when they played Bystials with a bunch of hand traps. Like, that was very hard to deal with. But now that Tier's out of the format, it'll be interesting to see how it shapes, because yes, DDD inherently dies to like pretty well everything that combats combo decks, but it's not as bad as the Bystials were. Like, when people were heavily maining Bystials and the Shizu cards, like, that was terrible, man. Like, I was losing to people I shouldn't have at the regionals, for example. that would just bestial me to death, and it was just unplayable, right? Like I couldn't even play around it. So I truthfully, like, to answer that question, I think we're going to be a solid rogue contender for sure. Maybe I don't know about high tier 2 just because bestials are a thing, but at the same time, if piloted correctly, it can definitely be a very high rogue contender. Maybe a high tier 2, depends. Maybe a high tier 2, not high like a low tier 2, but like right on the edge of tier 2 and rogue. I think it could land there.
But I definitely see, and I definitely see that, especially as a deck that can play a lot of hand traps. I actually think hand traps are a lot better this format than they were last format. And I think that's another strength that DDD has moving in. But I guess I'm going to open this up to everyone as well. What are we thinking about the new format? Because guys, I mean, like, ding dong, the witch is dead. Or the several witches. I don't know how many witches was it. It was like 4 witches in tier. They're all dead now, guys. So what are we thinking about the new format? Are we excited? Are we not excited? If you're not excited, I'll kick you off the podcast. You have to be excited.
Dan, I'll let you go first.
Well, me and Nate play tested on Monday with a few of our friends, and we were play testing against Kashtira. That deck is fucking insane, bro. But
it is actually nuts.
But it's weird, right? Because it feels so different to playing tier elements, because tier elements, like, the board was fair, right? But it was the recursion that was unfair. Whereas with Kashtira, the board is just, it's somewhat unfair. And then you kill it in turn 2, and it's like, all right then. Like, I guess I make a rank 7, and, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's fun. Like, don't get me wrong. I think the best card of the format is Thrust. Like, I was testing it on Monday. It's fucking nuts. Like, if you don't have Thrust, like, get them. Like,
I am so pissed about that, because it was literally like when we were doing the testing,
so
it was
fucking funny,
every single time I had a response to it, would be like, thrust into evenly, thrust into this, thrust into this.
So, like,
What?
Just to contextualize it, I was testing going second Sword Soul, like, because I think going second is good this format.
Yeah.
And because going first, you're just going to die to Lava Golem. And every single game we played, I think, how many games did I play? I think I played 11 games.
Yeah.
Every single game I saw Thrust, it was just so strong. It was like you search evenly, you search the board breaker, you need change your heart, you search your engine starter, like your rotor, whatever. But anyway, I digress. I think the format does feel fun. It feels a lot more rewarding to pick up a rogue deck right now, just like Jack was saying, because I've been messing with a couple of, like, pet decks here and there, like Springans, Crystal Beast, what have you, and they feel
Chain.
Yeah, I know that Nate's going to be picking up on Chain again, and it just feels so much better to just take a rogue deck and know that you're not just going to get absolutely just stamped on by a deck that's, like, so. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, you know, Kashtira is probably still going to be the best deck, but I don't feel Kashtira personally is any more oppressive than any deck we've had before. Like, correct me if... Go on.
I will counter here, and I will say this. The format is going to be insanely fun, because we now have things that are opened up that really have been oppressed over the last few formats, with tier elements being hit so heavily, and also because of the fact that no one's going to be main decking Bestials as much, you are now
another big one as well,
playing a lot of, like, graveyard recursion decks as well. To me, Kashtira feels very similar to Sprite, being that they end on, like, this massive end board. However, because of the fact they have no way of dealing with spell and trap negation, a card like Dark Ruler just kind of, or Book of Eclipse, kind of shuts down most of their recursion and the whole board presence that they have. So
even, like, Change Your Heart Raigeki or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
I can see you're thinking.
I'm gonna let Jack talk before me. I'm gonna let Jack talk before me.
Yeah, no, they're both correct. To speak on Thrust, that card's starting to go up again. I was telling people, like, DDDs aren't going to play it. Like, it's not a card for DDs. I would say it depends, but Thrust went from, like, 65 Canadian or US, I think, and now is going it went up like 20 US in, like, a day or two, because people are realizing it's good. So yeah, I would pick up Thrust, but to touch on that, you guys are right. Like, it's very welcoming to rogue decks, especially right now. It's very open. I think we're teetering back towards a format that's similar to Nationals. A lot of people are saying that because it's and a lot of people, like someone like Jesse Cotton and stuff, isn't going to like that as much from a competitive standpoint, because they can't just side for one deck primarily, which I get it. And at the same time, like, I couldn't play my DDs the way I wanted to last format. And that's just what I'm excited for, right? Because basically we're kind of back in that format where it's not like 2 hand traps kills every single deck, but like every deck has its break points and its fragile points. And I think if you can build towards that, like, having Nib in your main, or Ash Blossom kills Branded sometimes, like can kill Branded, like it's stuff like that where like it's super diverse and like a lot of decks are going to have another shot. And it's good to see that tier, I think someone's going to find a way to make tier fairly good again in a sort of engine sense, because they still have free Perla Rhino, right?
Yeah.
But it's a whole lot different because they don't have the Ishizu. So that deck's very well checked. They definitely did a great job to make it where it can still do its stuff, but it's going to be on a lower level. But yeah, the fact that we're just not in the tier 0 format, because I've been through Zodiac format, tier 0 format, and then part of the Plush Fire format, and Zoo was still like the first regional I went to was in my hometown in London, Ontario, and it was a 7-round tournament, and I was playing DDDs in that tier 0 format. It was the first week Raging Tempest came out when Zodiac was a thing, and I went all the way playing DDs at the time. I went all the way up to round 7 as an X2, and I was actually going to come. It was like 18th place there time I was going to come. This is the first regional I went to, and I was playing a Zoo player, and I made the lock at the time where it was like Vanity's Fiend and or what's the level 6? The Vanity's Fiend and the Hope Harbinger lock. At the time, that was an FPK. And I decided to summon a 3rd card, and the guy drew his 1 sphere mode. And like just
no.
So what I'm trying to say is like there was a lot more utility cards to work in a tier 0 format like that. Whereas this one, there was literally nothing that killed tier because it did so many things, right? So it's nice to see we're in a format where there's diversity again, and we can play decks we want to.
I was also going to say, like, tier, as you were saying before, tier isn't going to disappear. I don't think there will still.
Yeah, it's not.
It'll still be a way of like. I think it's just Rhino, normal summon, Turbo now, because they could do the entire lock thing with Draco Sack, summon Cherubini, send a name, so on and so forth.
Shit.
And there's also things like Diviner and the Kanko versions as well. Like, there's a lot of different things, to be honest, that you can do with TL. But what I was going to say on the
go true.
Is that while I agree that it is, I said this, well, Konami support put so many like rogue decks into like a kind of playable state. Like, it's weird. Like, Evil Eye got support, Plunder got support, Mayakashi. I've said Mayakashi like 10 times. I'm gonna keep saying it every podcast, guys. Mayakashi got support. So many of these rogue decks got support, but I will say that in my opinion, Kashtira is one of the most ignorant top decks there's been in a while. That deck.
It's ignorant.
I've been playing that. I was playing that on DB today. I played like 12 games in a row. I didn't lose one game, and I can 100% confirm I played worse than every opponent, but it didn't matter. It just didn't matter. Like, that deck is just so ignorant, and it's just like, there was a point when someone was flaming me, and he was like, "You're the worst Kashtira player I've ever seen," and I was like, "You're right, I am, but
I'm still winning."
I think that's what I said. I was just like, "Shut up and hurry up," bro. I was like,
so unfair sometimes, because you'll just open the nuts, and if you open Unicorn, it's full combo.
I think what was sad is like, so it's like I did my combo, banished 9 on the first turn, then I banished another 9 on his turn. And then it's like he broke my board, but it's like, you haven't got any cards left in your deck, bro. Like, all your combo pieces are face down banished. You don't get to play.
And it doesn't matter anyway, because I'm going to recycle all of them anyway. Like, it doesn't matter. I see so much resource.
Bring the unicorn. Yeah, the deck's just ridiculous. So, and there's one thing I don't like about Kashtira, that it really confuses me. Konami's design philosophy confuses me sometimes, because I could genuinely see Kashtira as a deck that if I was a new player and I played against Kashtira, it'd make me not want to play anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you play against that, and it just feels like I can't even play. Like, before I even got to play, you ruined my deck. Like, what the heck? And it makes me question it, because when there's decks like that in the format, it's almost like, I mean, I think everyone can admit that tier format had a negative impact on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of the amount of people playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I think it's safe to say a lot of locals were dying and stuff. And while I don't think it'll be as bad because Kashtira is so expensive, I think if Kashtira was as easily accessible as tier, it would probably be worse, because one thing about tier is, as frustrating as tier was, it just felt like their deck was better than yours. But whereas Kashtira, it's not even like their deck's just better than yours. It's like their deck's better than yours and you don't even get to play your deck.
That's true.
It's not nice. So that's one problem I do have with the current.
Yeah, I think for me, Kashtira is like the culmination, if you will, of when I was getting into the game, what I thought a powerful deck was. Like, it summons big monsters, stops you from playing, interrupts you, like, it does something really cool, like locking out your zone. I say cool, like, but you know what I mean. Like, something unique by locking out your zone.
Ooh, lock the zones.
Nah, but like, how often do you see that? If I was coming into the game and someone did that to me, I'd feel violated, but I'd also be like, damn, like, this is cool. This is cool to see. I think it's a bit more. I think it's a bit more fun. But
the worst thing
maybe I'm just a sadist in it, mate. I don't know.
The worst thing is that it sets the tempo then for how you want to play the game. And I think we've all had that where we've come into a locals where we played a rogue deck and then get beaten by a meta deck and then just goes, I want to play this now. And then that just sends people down it then sets your pace as a player. Because then you're just like, I want to play meta for a bit and I want to make sure that I can understand every single thing. And then you basically start to like learn the tempo of who you want to be as a player, whether you want to be control and stuff like that. But the negative thing about it as well is the price point. Because of the fact that cash is ridiculously expensive. Like, for example...
So let's break this down here. Let's actually break down the price of Kashtira. Like, so you have the Darkwing Blast cards. You got Fenrir, which is like what? We're going to go off UK prices.
140.
Like,
140 for the playset.
For a playset. Round about the same in Canadian, I imagine, right?
That's
140 a playset. That seems low to me, right? I thought it was like 70 each for Fenrir's.
Depends on if you want to go ultis.
Depends.
They were, yeah. Ultis are expensive.
Yeah, and then you got Unicorn, which is sunk a little bit, but you're still looking at like
60.
Yeah, and then you've got like the random supers, which you know people are just going to buy out, and they're going to go up to like 3 or 4 quid every so often. So before you go, you've got £200 you spent on half a deck core, right?
And then you've got the
like, granted, Fenrir is a staple, but that's by the by.
Yeah.
Then you got your field spell, which is like another £40 per copy. You got your E-Telly.
Yeah,
nah, it's more than that now. It's like 60.
Yeah, you got your normal summon, your Rise Heart, like, which is another 3 copies. You've got
30.
your extender, which is like, you know, you want to have your
at Leon, they were
Kashtira.
doing they were buying Kashtira tournaments for €14 at Leon.
Gosh darn.
They're buying it.
And then you have your boss monster, your macro on legs, your Rise Heart, which is, I've seen people sell them for about £15.
Yeah,
you need 3 copies of, I think. Well, at least 2, let's say.
2.
Yeah, and that's your deck core, right? That's your deck core, which is about 15 cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like your prosperities, your staples, your side deck cards, your extra deck cards, like your.
You're looking at like 500 upwards. If you want to play competitive, and because especially in my opinion, if you're buying Kashtira, don't buy Kashtira to be an average player. Buy Kashtira to be competitive. So if I'm buying Kashtira, I feel like you should be buying the thrust and stuff. Otherwise, why are you buying Kashtira? You're wasting money.
Exactly.
If I'm spending £500 on a deck, it's like I need to top a regional. I can't spend £500 on a deck to go and win locals. That doesn't make sense.
And also the thing is, like, for extra deck staples as well, you have to buy 2 of them as well, because of the fact of if you go up against the mirror, you are definitely going to be losing some of them.
That's my least favorite thing about Kashtira. I know we've waffled on about Kashtira this podcast, but if you genuinely, I think if you ban Diablosis, like, I think the deck becomes a lot easier to play against.
Yes,
I agree
completely.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you can't lock the zones anymore. Like, by the time that it gets to their turn, you've already locked 4 of their zones. There is a way.
It's not even that, bro. It's not even that. It's like, leave my fucking extra deck alone.
It's not even the extra deck, mate. It's the fact it banishes from your deck and then just goes, yes, your extra deck as well.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think we just
waffled on about Kashtira already.
There is another wild deck that has flown under the radar as well, that I think even after the Sprite Elf ban is going to be sick, and that's Gishki Sprite. I think Gishki Sprite is absolutely crazy. I played it, so again, we'll talk about this afterwards. I went to ICS Leon.
Anyway. Bro, Brandon's the next deck to beat for sure. Brandon's got a lot of nice support.
I agree.
Yeah, Brandon is probably I would say one of the biggest, has one of the biggest potentials for the next format. Just the new support is very interesting.
Going through the lines as well is insane. Like, literally the fact of we were learning about the interactions that you can have against Kashtira, and if you activate Branded Fusion whilst they have Shifter up, you can still bounce the board because a Rise Heart is a mandatory trigger.
Like one red drum in it, like, outs the
entire board.
I will say on that, Joshua Smith, very, very decisively disproved that in his stream today.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
essentially just because the problem is if you look at the board that Kashtira makes off one unicorn, if you branded fusion and you try and bounce, all you do at most is out one card, but then you've used your best card, branded fusion. Like, what's your plan after that? So it's like he proved that he did so many scenarios, and he's just like, it doesn't really out. Like it kind of outs it, but it doesn't really out it. But
I don't know, man.
but Branded does have a lot of potential. I do agree. I think Branded is it's an awesome deck.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
Branded is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, what are you
Really
thinking of
good.
playing then, Jack? Are you going to stick with DDD as like a rogue pick or?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna stick with DDDs. I mean, I always have, right? But if it gets too overpowering, then yeah, like in virtual world format, I would play virtual worlds. And then the next deck I picked up was Tier, right? Because like when Tier got out of hand, I was like, I can't compete with this deck, so I bought it, and it was fun. And like when I went to the Toronto regionals, like 100%, I wish I like it was 9 rounds. Like I wish I played Tier. Like round 2, I played a Tier Shizu player that like straight up like trying to bisteel me with no cards on board, like one of these guys, and I got cooked by him because he opened nuts, and I'm just thinking, man, if I was playing Tier, like this is a mirror match, this would be over. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of wish I played it for that because I personally like Tier. I love the mirror match. It was just it stopped me from playing like decks I wanted to play, like DDD. But yeah, this format for sure. I think DDD can at least like a strong rogue contender, right? I think a strong rogue contender can at least do decent at events. It's really got to see where the format's going to shape up, right? That's the whole gist of it.
Yeah,
This does bring me on to a question I had for you, Jack. So like you've gone into detail about your dalliances with DDD. What do you think like one of the most important things is about sticking with a specific deck for so long that isn't necessarily going to always be like a meta pick or like an optimal pick? Like, what would your advice be to someone who's looking to have that sort of, not necessarily with DDD, but they have a deck that they really like and they want to take it to the best ability that they can? Like, what advice do you have for them to like, persevere with that and keep that up?
Yeah, that's a super good question. Basically, you have number one, it comes down to like having like a solid understanding of the deck itself. The better understanding you have of the deck, the more you're going to be able to be like, okay, now I got to understand this deck and like these problems I'm having, like where are the problems? Take in the necessary cards you need, right? And then your engines, your non-engine slots are going to be working towards that, and then your combos are going to have to switch up. That's pretty much it. Like Bestial format, I had to switch up the way I did my 2-card combo to send the Vice Typhon as well. So, because every time I sent that Vice Typhon, I'd trigger it first, and they'd Bestial it, and then I had Necroslime to still make a rank 6 XYZ in the trap, right? Like, it's small things like that where you can make slight iterations and concessions to where it all comes down to number one, a good understanding of your deck, and then number 2, a good understanding of the top deck. Because the only reason why I could do decent against Tier, like, I think one of the last uploads I did was me versus a Tier player on high rated, and you could see, like, I just knew that how the deck worked, and I knew where the choke points were rather than just shotgunning, right? I think that's the 2 big things is number 1, understanding your deck, and number 2, understanding the other decks. And it's just having trust, right? You just got to trust the deck and not give up on it, because you will get frustrated. And obviously Tier 0, I mean, the deck's not gonna. There's no answer, but you just gotta keep trusting your deck as number 3.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's such a great answer. It's sort of like a lead-on question, but maybe it's different for DDD because it is like an incredibly complex deck and it is incredibly rewarding to pilot. Do you feel like because say if you spend a lot of time with one deck, would you say it's true or false that gives you more time because you know the lines well to focus on analyzing the meta, like different picks for techs and how to break their boards, things like that? Or would you say that that's actually like a complete myth, like you need to put in the same amount of testing time and stuff like that?
No, that's 100% true. The better you understand your deck, and this relates to anything, like in like life principles as well. Like the better you understand your deck, it just becomes a foundation at that point, like understanding the lines. Because quite honestly, when DDD got their support, I was always playing the synchro stuff, and I was like, okay, I haven't played Pure, and everyone's like saying Pure's the best variant. And then when I looked into it, I was like, yeah, this Headhunt card's crazy, and the rank 6 is crazy. Like I got to find a way to make this work. And then I just play tested, like just making it work, right? And then once I just took a while, and by the time Battles of Chaos came out, I knew these combos like a foundation. Like it was just like I could go to a tournament, I knew exactly what I was doing. So then the other decks I was playing, like Sword Soul and stuff, I knew where their choke points were. So when people didn't know what I was doing, I knew exactly where they were going, right? And I already had a solid understanding. It all just comes down to making those combo lines like a foundation, and then it's second hand, like second knowledge. That's it. But yeah.
Definitely.
That's knowledge, man. That's straight knowledge. Like
Yeah.
I feel like you're really like I say, like we've not met before this podcast, obviously, but you strike me as someone who's very you really know what you want to get out of the game. Like would you say that's a fair analogy or?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like when I do all these videos, like it's straight up out of like perseverance and like just having that thrill of just like speaking my mind. Like literally, like these videos are an hour long of me just talking, and that's because I love just speaking my mind and just like I'm not a person that can talk like someone's ear off. It's just when you get me into like my personality, like style is like to be a coach pretty much, and like in the world of like real estate, like that's what I do. I train like a lot of agents and stuff, and then when it comes to this, it's the same thing. Like you see my playmat, and then I'm literally dissecting things, and that's what I get the thrill out of, right? Like that's the passion I have, is just dissecting lines and like why I'm doing certain things, and that's the whole moral I have for it, right? Like I'm not in the game to like go to locals, bring a tier 0 deck and just ruin everyone, which quite frankly I was bringing a tier 0 deck to my locals the past couple weeks because everyone had Bestial 8, right? So I couldn't do anything about it, but that's the big purpose, right? So when I have a chance that people are going to look back at DDs again, I'm like, okay, and kind of reiterate some of the combos if need be, or people are going to look at me for a deck profile and I'm going to explain my choices, right? I do have a deck list that's ready to go. Again, but I'm excited when I'm able to do that because I love just preaching to people like, hey, look at this deck profile, or like look at this new combo, right? Like it's just knowledge, right? That's what I like doing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Pretty solid. No, I love it, man. And I don't know. I'm excited to see the next. I'm excited to see the next DDD video, man. I'm gonna be tearing it up at locals DDD again, man. It's a fun deck to play. I feel like out of a lot of the decks that I play, I mean, it's a reason I have probably about 40 deck boxes to my left, but DDD is one of the ones that I keep ready and sleeve to play at any time because it's just a fun deck to execute on. Like, and when you come to locals and you look at across the table, it's like I just know it's like your opponent. You know they have no idea what's about to happen. They have no chance. It's just a good feeling, yeah. So definitely gonna be.
Yeah, and it's like that now too. Like it might actually have its chance because when I brought it to the regionals, bro, a lot of people didn't know what I was doing. Like they're just like reading my cards. I'm just like, man, this is crazy. Like people don't know what it does anymore because it fell off, right? And people have to focus on it. So now that it's coming in as like that Undertaker, right? So, yeah, 100%. Like it's definitely going to be a fun time to play this format for sure.
Yeah, sounds
I
good.
think that's something that's really rewarding about playing a rogue deck, to be honest, because I've had it like, I'm sure we've all felt it, to be fair, like when we've taken a rogue deck to an event and we've had like interactions and the opponent's like reading your card like, this is fucked, man, like what the hell?
Like, in your mind you're like, yeah, this game's already over.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
the best feeling, man.
do you think it's more rewarding to win with a deck that you love, or do you like a win is a win?
Depends.
Yeah,
I think
that's a super good. I'll let you guys speak on that first because I got a good answer for that.
Right. So it depends on how much you love the deck that you're actually playing, because I know people who have played meta decks and really enjoyed themselves, and I know people who have played the sort of roguish decks and had a really, really fun time with those, and they'll win from the skill that they have and also the fact of the skill that they have and also the love for the deck themselves. I think it doesn't really matter. Like, as long as you're having fun at the end of the day and you know, and you're playing the deck that you want to play and you're having the most enjoyment out of it, then like you can class it as a win.
I would say there's a certain level of pride in when it's like a deck that you love and you know it's not meta. I think I've had tops with meta decks, and it's like it's not like I'm not proud of it, but it's like I know my deck was good because it was a meta deck. But I'll harken back to my first top. My first top was with Dark Lord Grandmaji, and like that's still like my most it's my most proud on top. I remember it's like I was playing against people and it was like they were shocked that I was playing that deck, and it's like it made me feel cool because like I really worked hard on that.
Was that Eternal?
Yeah, wasn't that Dark Lord Gren Marju?
Yeah, that was during the during Eternal format, and it was crazy. Like it was slapping people. Still to this day, like I that was one of the funnest decks that I played.
Yeah.
So
That
for
was
me,
so
I was about to say,
sick.
I think me and you played the mirror match
We
once, and I think that was the most fun. Genuinely, like I think that was the most fun game of Yu-Gi-Oh I've ever had, and I think it was so back and forth in the way you won. Like I'll set the scenario for you, Jack. It's game 3. Like I've got 2 darks on board, right? He has 1 card in deck and 1 card in hand. I'm like super low on life. Like it's crunch time in it. I'm like, okay, I have Sanafond and like I have like another negate. The only card he can legitimately top deck and win here is Super Poly in it. What do you think?
Talk.
It was incredible.
Oh,
It was
man.
so good, man.
Yeah.
No, I remember I remember coming back. I think it was like watching one of the judges come back from the regionals that you played where you topped, and he was literally going through like all the decks. Oh yeah, it was this person with Orcus. Oh, it was this person with Thunder, and it was like, guess who came forth? And I was like, who? He topped with Gren Marju Dark Lord, and I literally lost my shit.
Yeah,
I was actually, it was so
That's
sick.
crazy.
So yeah, that's
That's
what I'd
sick.
definitely say for me. I do think doing it over deck that you love is at least for me, I think that's the case. But what about you guys? What about you guys?
Yeah, that's 100%. Like it always feels good to get like when you top, right? The way I thought of it was so going into, and I'm just gonna circle back to Toronto regionals because this is the one that just happened, right? And this is just a prime example. The Toronto regionals, everyone knew it was a Shizu tier format, right? And I was 100% bringing a Shizu tier because I'm like, this is gonna be a 350, 400 person tourney because Toronto regionals are big. And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely bringing a Shizu tier. I'm just going to rip up a tier. And then 2 weeks before, like my buddies were all in Discord and they're like, man, like, I don't think your YouTube channel would care at all if you even won with the Shizu tier. But I think like they would, right? Like some people would, but what they're saying is like, I think they're going to get more value out of you, even like getting completely decimated with DDDs and just having like a straight up input of like how the deck's going to do, right? So when I look at it like that, I'm just like, okay, like experimental. And I knew the deck like had a 50-50, like it was all based off of like die rolls, right? Like basically, because the Bestials were like rough. But what I'm trying to say is like, if you can at least, if you come through the top in like a tier 0 format, like with a rogue deck, people are like way more astonished than like, oh, a Shizu tier again? Like who cares about a Shizu tier, right? Because like I knew like, let's say I like won Toronto regionals with the Shizu tier, people will care obviously, but nowhere near as much as like if I just brought DDDs in general to a regional and have a tournament report, because people like love hearing about that. Like, hey, I played 9 rounds of Swiss essentially, right? And yeah, I lost 5 of them and I won 4. I just gave like an honest report saying the deck's terrible right now because of the Bestials and all the hand traps people are playing. And it needs to win a die roll. And I got proof out of that from 9 rounds. And I was just happier to say, hey, I played this deck that's not very good, but if I top with it, it would have been crazy. Like even if I got like a top 32, it's like, oh shoot, this guy went top 32 in this format of DDDs. Like, you know what I mean? It kind of gives them a bit more credibility, right? Because it got to a point where I think a lot of us seen that where the Shizu tier, like people were just like, oh, another Shizu tier deck. Like literally in the comments, like people didn't care, right? And like, they're all the same deck, right? And that's kind of what I thought. I'm like, man, for content creation, this isn't going to make sense. So why don't I just do something crazy and just bring DDDs and just play my heart out for 9 rounds? And I had fun. Like, I'm not going to lie, I had fun. It was just, I had no chance all these matches, right? It was just terrible, right? But
The way you told that story, I completely felt like what you were saying, if you get what I mean. I was like, yeah, you know what, like I can tell that you had a better time playing DDD than you would playing like Shizu tier, because we spoke about this numerous times in the podcast. Like tier 0 deck profiles are boring as fuck.
Yes.
Very boring.
Yeah.
Very
Like-
boring.
Like, do you guys remember like first Spiral format? Double Helix was out and it was just everywhere. Like I think the deck profile from what event was it? I can't remember the event. But the top cut was 29 Spiral players and 1 hand trap invoked and 2 trick stars, I think. And the deck profile that got the most views, it was a Deception with the hand trap invoked. And I was like, that, like then everyone was like, "You're the people's champion," it like in our eyes here. And
Imagine saying that about Invoked.
I mean, for example, even at Leon, there was Subterra Dragoon versus
Yes.
TR.
Yeah,
People were
was
cheering
great.
for Subterra Dragoon. There was Runic Stun versus Castera. People were cheering for
Yeah.
Runic Stun. So yeah,
Yeah,
like,
there's always been a like even
Yeah.
Jeff Leonard winning top 16 the PPG with the Mystic Mine. There's always going to be decks
Yeah.
like that are
Yeah.
always going to be, and I think it brings it out so much more in Tier Zero formats. And that's something that I really like about Tier Zero formats personally is the challenge, right? Like of taking a deck that you love and just like trying to push it. It almost feels like you're trying to like go Super Saiyan with it, right? Trying to go up
Yeah.
against this final boss sort of thing.
yeah,
Yeah, I get
Right.
what you mean.
yeah.
And also there's
Yeah.
like, and also you feel you can't help but root for the underdog in that situation because you kind
course.
of already know the outcome, but you want something to change. You
It's about the
want that-
journey, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you feel so much more gratification to know that you've taken that round against one of the hardest decks to beat, and it just gives you that feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
That-
100%.
Guys, we would be remiss to talk about a certain topic. Yeah, there's a certain topic that's been going on the Yu-Gi-Oh community.
Yeah, we're 3/4 of the way through the show, so I think I'm gonna bring it up. So YCS Leon happened, and Crystal Blanc topped YCS Leon. Very, very, really like. Look, I'm not actually a fan of the tier mirror, but I even found that game exciting. Like, it was a really, really exciting game. I think it was Antonio P who was the other finalist or whatever. But yeah, I would watch it. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is, so Crystal Blanc is a 5-time YCS champion now. 5-time? 4-time? 5-time? Anyway, he's won YCS a lot, the most out of anyone else. And his ex-girlfriend, who I think was also a creator, if I'm not mistaken, came
They
out
were
with
part of Star Strike Duelist, I think it was back in the day.
Yeah.
Before you go on, by the way, I do want to preface that these accusations did come out before YCS Leon.
They did, yes. That's actually a really good point as well. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's relevant to find out. It wasn't... A lot of people kind of accused her of clout chasing and such. And she even admitted to an extent that she was doing it because he's getting recognition now and she wanted it to be known. But
that was for his content creation, right?
Yeah. But so essentially, his girlfriend came up with Twitlonger, essentially accusing him of a couple of different things. So saying that he was violent, he was aggressive, he would threaten her, he would throw things at the wall, he would break things.
Emotional abuse.
Emotional abuse, just accused him of a lot. Now, normally when you get accused of certain things, there's like different ways you can handle it. I would say that the way Chris handled it probably wasn't the best.
No,
It was
absolutely terrible.
It's funny because his response, he used a tweet logger for it, but I feel like he could have just done a regular tweet for his response. It was really short.
Yeah.
His response was essentially, I didn't abuse her. I was kind of crappy, but I'm ready to make content for you guys.
Yeah, it's so crap.
And then moving on from that, Source Gaming, which is the team he was part of, they said, oh, the allegations hadn't been proven and such and all of this. And then they were defending him in the comments. And then about maybe a day later, the team just imploded. So, like, first Pac left, Harney was defending him as well. And then I don't know if Harney left or whatever.
Nesh got involved as well.
Nesh got involved.
His content, his content got nuked. His YouTube, Twitter was gone. Like it was.
He made a post stating like, Harney said that I'm done with content creation now. Like, you can't have an opinion in this day and age and stuff like that. And I was like, bro.
Do you want me to be completely honest about like my opinion on that,
yes,
Hanny?
Yes, please.
It's a podcast for a reason.
Fucking suck it up. Like,
yeah,
your friend is like being accused of being with some pretty damning evidence, might we add, of being like a shit person and like a legitimate criminal. Like, these are all accusations, obviously, for the sake of whatever. But how, like, what do you expect is going to happen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you got a tweet saying, "Oh, you are my goat." Like Lofton as well. Lofton was someone on Twitter. Again, I don't know Lofton, anything like that. He spent about 2 days on Twitter just like on some
going off
very odd hill he was prepared to die on about the fact that he respected Chris for his tops and that he, like, even though he knew about the abuse and whatever, and then he came out and was like, oh, the way Source worded it, you know, I retract my previous statements, and I was just like, okay, but
make up your mind, bro.
No, like, I don't want to get into the semantics of Chris Lofton's Twitter, like he's a great duelist, whatever, but like his Twitter is just a mad place. But yeah,
Twitter is
anyway,
just a mad place anyway. So
yeah. Whoever was on Source's fucking Twitter account, bro, that intern needed to be fired.
Yeah, they didn't do the best job, and I think
No.
what's a bit sad as well is that even the fact that the team imploded, like it's not nice that like a whole team has gotten destroyed. Because when you think about Source Gaming, all they really did, even their initial tweet, what they basically said is they didn't see enough evidence, which I don't think is an unnecessarily unfair statement. They said there was no evidence, nothing.
So the thing that before I want to preface this because I've done a lot of we've done a lot of digging on this. Like we've been caught up in this lore for a hot minute. Like, Samantha, I believe that's her name. I think it's Samantha. Reached out to Source, let them know, I believe, and Source actually responded saying, they support her and everything like that.
Yeah.
And then they put out a tweet saying there wasn't enough evidence, and someone asked, "Oh, what would you consider to be enough evidence?" And they said, "Oh, receipts, things like that." And then even these are things that they'd previously acknowledged existed, and it was like such a contradiction. So it was like, what the
receipts for what? Like that doesn't
the
make
conversations between Chris and Samantha.
okay.
This was public domain.
Physical evidence.
Shit.
Okay.
Yeah, like of screenshots of text conversations and things like that.
Yeah,
Again, it's a very like sticky thing to try and touch on, but this is stuff that was put out onto Twitter, like on the public domain, so it's just kind of stating the facts here, sort of thing.
Yeah.
From what we know, anyway.
But again, I just think it's sad that like sometimes you got to keep your mouth shut, like, because like now the whole team got imploded as a result of this. Like, I'm sure there were other people who had nothing, and like I'm sure if I was part of Source Gaming this happened, I'd be so upset right now. I'd be like, guys, what the heck? Like, I wasn't involved in this. Why is my team got destroyed? Like,
I was going to say, think about it. Like, you've literally like put all your time and effort into making this team of high-level players to play the game, and then all of a sudden, you're being brought down for someone else that.
Yeah, like it's like, why can't Chris just behave himself? Like,
exactly. And his post was also like something that needed to be improved upon as well. Imagine saying that, like literally going off on one and saying, "I've heard the allegations. I've not been a great person. But I got some new videos for you guys." That doesn't make
the thing that I will say about that, because it's not something that I 100% agree with. Again, I don't know any of these people personally. I don't know what the scenario was. But if it was a case where one of my close friends had been accused of something with some pretty damning evidence to back it up, I don't think I would be, unless I was like 100% certain. I'd be like, look, I'll have a conversation with them in private about our relationship.
Yeah.
And then it's especially if I'm a representative of a company, right? Like even more so, I feel like there's a certain way you have to handle things. And I think the most mature way of handling it was the way that Pac handled it. He tweeted saying he was no longer affiliated with the brand, and he disabled replies on his Twitter, for that tweet.
That is
that's how you handle it. And that was all I've seen him say in public domain about it. Whatever he's done in his private life, he's done in his to sort that out. He's done that. We don't need to know about that, right?
Exactly. And if you're a public figure, you have a certain level of responsibility of keeping your public life, dealing with these as you said, Dan, dealing with these in a public way that doesn't affect obviously your brand or doesn't affect you as and dealing with it responsibly and effectively is how you keep obviously. It's why so many people who have it's a really difficult one to explain, but
I get what you're trying to say. I think
being in the public eye, you have to.
The thing that you're trying to say is, if Source has handled it differently, Source Gaming would still potentially be a company.
Yes, I think there's a level of maturity you have to go about with these things, and you have a responsibility as a creator. You have a responsibility as a public face to. Deal with things in a mature manner.
Man. It's not,
exactly.
It's sloppy. It's not hard. Like
it's you're a human being at the end of the day. Like you need to deal with these things properly. We're all,
So Jack's we've waffled on quite a bit, and you're.
I was gonna say.
What's your view on this?
I think it's like the whole situation. Like it should have just. It seems like everything's just been dealt through social media, and like you're saying, like Pac did the right thing. We're just like, I'm leaving Source Gaming. That's it. Like, just wanted to let you know I'm leaving the sponsor, right? And like the whole situation, I think should have just been like something that like, if I'm in his position, I sexually assaulted like a woman, like let's just say I did, then something like that, I'm gonna reach out to her, and then I'm gonna take that to court or something. I'm gonna do that behind the scenes. Like this has all been dealt through social media. There's people posting about it like crazy. It's like. But the sad part is like you're seeing like outside of all that, like Chris and Hani, like those guys are like huge like players for learning the game, and it's like now they're leaving because they just didn't handle the situation correctly, which realistically they didn't. Which like when you're hearing something like as serious as that, it's not as simple as just like public posts. Like that should be like between him and his ex or his girl, like whoever that is, right? His ex. That should have been dealt on a personal level. Like I see, she's obviously posting that because like yeah, maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't. I don't know, but like something like that should be really kept personal. Like that 100% is kept personal, and like that was obviously used to ridicule him, but like he should have done the right thing instead of making a really that post was super cheesy, that reply, but like he should have taken that to the back rooms and been like got in touch with her, like met up and just been like if they even I don't know if they had a restraining order, but like met up about it in court, like just get that resolved.
Sort it out. Like
exactly.
He should have approached her in the adult manner, right?
It's just crazy how much it's just overflown on social media. It just tells you like what social media is like. Like it's like, geez, like it's all being dealt over social media, and then like one thing said, and it's like, if you guys just like if that was made, just take it behind the scenes and like resolve it, and then when the firm answer comes out, yeah, if he's assaulted her sexually, then yeah, like that's not an okay thing, right? But that's also his personal. That's also his personal life. Yu-Gi-Oh is a community filled with who knows, right? Like we all know Yu-Gi-Oh is the one community that's filled with weirdos. Like, come on, man! Like you can't tell me like some of you guys haven't done some effed up stuff. You know what I mean?
I like that point so much because that's exactly what I was thinking. Like I was thinking the amount of you guys that like are like jumping on this Chris hate bandwagon. And it's like I don't know what skeletons you got in your closet, but I'm sure they're worse. Yeah.
The one thing I'll say on that point is I think there's a difference between doing something that's like a little bit like naughty and years of abuse. I do think there's something.
My point isn't that. Yeah, I'm not even referencing, for example, the people who are in love with Ray. That's not what I'm referencing. No, I'm referencing no. There are people I'm sure who are also doing that kind of stuff, but are just jumping on it because it's on social media, and that's what.
Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah. Miscommunications there.
It's kind of like the cancel culture sort of thing, where it's just like everyone starts doing it, and then other people are just jumping in on it just to.
Because it's the in thing, right? Because this is part of the reason, like, why I didn't want to talk about this on the pod until like all the information had come out. Because like, I want to get my facts and form my own opinion, right? And I've kind of said everything that I say. Like, I think from the evidence, from what I've seen, like the opinion that I have is that Chris, you clearly did something like horrible. Yeah. Sort that out. However, she's even said Yu-Gi-Oh is all he has and is whatever. Like, but you can't use your Yu-Gi-Oh accomplishments to justify being a shit person, which is what I've seen people say. Oh, I've seen like this brain dead fucking take on Zodiac Duelist and like Twitter. It's like, oh yeah, well he might have been an abuser, but how many tops have you got? Like fucking. Suck him, mom.
I actually I think I saw someone say something. Yeah, it was like, hating on Chris isn't going to get you tops, and it's like, maybe I just don't like abusers.
Maybe I'm a decent human being and don't like shit happening to people who don't deserve it.
It's like you have two pills. One is top Yu-Gi-Oh. One is don't abuse women.
One is Andrew Tate logic. One is other thing. Like, it doesn't
These
work
men
like
are taking the black pill, bro.
You know what's even worse? You know what's even worse? It's just like it also has brought in players who have basically dedicated their lives to like the craft as well. Like Hani, for example. Hani just topped a YCS. Like the first one he's topped probably. I think that's his first YCS top. I'm not too sure. And then he's gone from that to obviously have his like his content, his social media just gone.
Man, like it's crazy because like that's a serious like topic, like sexual assault, man. That is like very serious, and like that should not. The problem is like with days like today is like how stuff like that can just like be casually leaked through social media, and then like people casually go about it like that. It's like, man, that is so serious. Like that goes behind the scenes, and like if he's like there's like if someone is like sexually assaulted or like quote unquote rape, like I'm not gonna say any names obviously, but like I personally know someone who is on that list because they allegedly did something like that used to play at my locals, and they stay on that list, and that's just that and done. Like something like that is like very serious, and that should be like taken into like the courts, like not
Mhm.
social media. Like it's crazy to me how like social media is just depicting all that. It's like, geez, like
I do agree. I
You
do agree
say-
that it should be handled like that, but I do think from a victim's perspective, I do understand that it must be incredibly frustrating to see someone who's caused you a lot of pain, like getting a lot of love in the public eye, and I
Yeah.
understand how you
That's
would
right.
want to talk about it through a sort of avenue where you feel you'll be best heard.
yeah,
But that's
also right.
You want to
that's
have
me
your
looking
opinion
from
said.
that's me looking at it from I guess from the perspective of like a victim, right?
I want to say something, but I'll
So,
let Fab go.
we're coming to the end of the show, but I actually have, based on that, Daniel, I have an interesting moral dilemma that I'm going to pose to all of you guys
Sure.
based on this.
Sure.
And we're going to do that instead of I'm the arsehole, I think, because I want to see what you guys think. So let's say, for example, now, guys, as I said, this is all hypotheticals. I do not think this is the case with Chris, but I'm just posing this as our hypothetical. So let's say Chris did this 5 years ago. Then he apologized. He's tried to get better. He's changed as a person, and now he's getting out in the spotlight. Do you think her exposing him online would have been the right thing to do, based on that?
I think from a victim's perspective, I don't think there's anything wrong with that if he had shown proof and he was able to come out and say these allegations are true. This is who I was 5 years ago. I did it because of X, Y, and Z. I'm now a better person. Like I abhor that actions. Again, I believe that like some of this stuff is I don't want to say it's because I don't have the facts in front of me, right? Like I don't want to be misquoted or whatever, but I believe that if someone does something wrong in life and they show genuine to a degree, obviously, I think there's things that you sort of can't condone.
Yeah.
But I think if someone shows genuine
Remorse.
regret and genuine remorse, that's what I'm looking for, and a genuine drive to change, and they have kind of given genuine apologies, and they've essentially owned the situation like a grown up, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the end of that sentence was, but you get what point I'm trying to make,
I
right?
understand your point, which is that essentially, if they're trying to change, then but essentially you should own up to what you did and then kind of keep it pushing.
Yeah,
I have. Like, I think.
So
this
let's
is-
see what Nate's opinion is on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, first things first. I think if this was the case, reaching out privately probably would have been the best idea, because unfortunately everyone now has a platform on socials and things can spiral way out of control, like we've seen before.
when you say reaching out, before you go any further, do you mean the victim reaching out to the abuser, or the abuser reaching out to the victim in this scenario? Nice.
I think
Just
it would be obviously before, if it would be
I
depending
just
on
want
if the
to clear. I just want to clear at what point you're trying to get.
Oh,
across,
it's the
right?
victim reaching out to the victim reaching out to the abuser.
Oh, so
I think
again, you were sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sort of just say and deal with if these issues weren't clarified before, and obviously I know that they could be too traumatized to have this conversation, but possibly me saying talking things through is probably not the. It's not the best. Yeah, definitely not what I was going to say. But there is. I don't know. Maybe if you want to get your opinion across, then.
Yeah, I think like to touch on that, like I think like she is in every right to like play something out in there, because obviously like,
Yeah,
if she
of
was,
course.
like, the one that was like, if she's the one that happened to, and like she's seeing him get all this like upkeep and like like everyone's like idolizing him, then yeah, she's obviously gonna be pissed off for something that he did that was like crazy, right? So like yeah, she's kind of in every right to like publicly shame him, and then the way he should have responded, which again, this is like a personal level, but like to help, like this is just to help him and like everything that happened with his company, because again, they're super good names to have in the community for an educational base. He should have just privately like took that aside and figured that out when everyone was kind of like talking about it, and then just come back and be like, hey, you know what, this did happen. Like honesty is always like the number one thing. It's like, you know what, it did happen. I'm trying to become a better person. This is what happened years ago.
Yeah.
Really different person out, instead of just avoiding it, because like who knows what happened. Everyone's in the question, right? And if he could say no, this didn't happen, then like maybe come back with proof, right? Like we took it to court, nothing actually happened, and then everyone just idolized him again. But like other way around is if something did happen, well, okay, like, hey, I'm trying to be a better person. Like I went through some hard times and, I'm trying to become better, right? At least some proof, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just avoiding it, which is the big problem everyone has.
You pretty much said everything that I was going to say. I was trying to find the words, but I couldn't find them properly. It's like there is a way. Nice.
Exactly
I didn't want to come across as bad, but that was basically like the thing is that when you can deal with these things in a private manner, that obviously takes it to the seriousness that you need to, and then he can take it away and then sort out these issues privately instead of involving everyone in the company and then obviously ruining everyone else's public image. There was a more sensible way of dealing with things than how things have actually gone.
There was 100%, especially on a professional level. Like it just looks terrible in the community, man. Like
the one thing, sorry Fabs, before you go on, I've just remembered some bits about how Chris handled the situation. Before he turned off comments on his YCS winning profile, I believe one of the comments was, "I'm not here to talk about petty drama and allegations," which he'd already sort of admitted to on his twit longer, by the way. He also changed his profile picture to a picture of Johnny Depp for a day, which is just an incredibly poor taste, right? It's just
that's on him. At that point, that's on you, right? Like that's just
Like his top comment was like, "Hey, like it's not top comment. He made a statement something like, the haters are never going to bring me down. My next stop is world." So I was like, bro, what the fuck are you?
Change it to Amber Heard if you're going to change it to anyone, like, because that's pretty much what end up being in the story. Like,
I don't know about you guys, but if I had been accused of something that heinous, I'd be keeping an incredibly low profile.
Yeah,
like
you don't act like a dick. Like you genuinely
he's digging a grave for himself. That's basically like at that point he's just digging a grave for himself because there is a way you can handle it professionally, and then when you see that, he's basically admitting to it in a cheesy way where he's avoiding it. Like
he's trying to go on a Joker arc or something.
Yeah, he's acting like he's got a persona, like a career level that's acting higher above what he actually's done. And if there's physical proof, this is like
you're going to jail, my guy.
Yeah, you are literally going to
potentially.
And
jail.
And it's one of those things as well. Like everyone said, it was the conversation that was brought up of, will anything happen about his top from Leon? And more than likely,
who cares?
That one, I'd be surprised. I don't think Konami would be that proactive about it. Just don't think it benefits them or what they care.
No,
about. But maybe.
It was something that was just brought up in conversation, and I think
I did see some of that as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if Konami just kind of turns a blind eye to it. It's just I don't think
if it's something that's happened outside of the company, I don't think they would actually.
And I also I don't think anyone would really. I think the only way I would see Konami doing something is if they were getting hate for it. But I feel like if someone criticized Konami, hated on Konami for that, they would be really silly because he did win the tournament. So it's like Konami didn't like pick him out and like give him an award. It's just no, he won the tournament. So
they can't
stop him from being like they paraded him round and said, "Oh look, this."
He got an interview. He got what everyone else got. He gets a 30-second interview at the end, and then we never hear about him from Konami again. It's not that big a deal. But guys, on that note, we're gonna close off this episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Show before it gets too long. So thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for Jacked. Oh gosh, having this legend on the show has definitely been awesome, bro. Awesome. Would be love to have you again. I had too many loves in there. I don't know. Maybe it sounded a bit sus, but I don't care. But still, it was awesome having you.
Any shout outs before you want to go, Jack?
Yeah. Shout out to I don't know, man, the people I play test with for my locals. Shout out to my girlfriend. We're 4 years together now. We have our own place. We're happy. My dog. I don't know, man. Like. Shout out to everyone who watches my channel. Like, you guys all comment, and it's super appreciated 100% when that's partially why I provide content, right? So, biggest shout out would 100% go out to everyone who subscribes to me and watches my videos, and that's pretty well. Oh, and shout out to my local store, Players Cards and Collectibles. They're located in London, Ontario, Canada. That's where I'm from. So
awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys. We'll see you next week. Peace.